Okay, so yesterday we left with a question. We are on Perik Yud Aleph Pasuk Beis.
What number is that?
I'm going to let you know in a second.
Thank you.
That is on page
Not page number. What's the
Yud
I don't know
Aleph,
how to translate the numbers yet. He's going to send them in English.
Yud Aleph Beis, 11:2,
Thank you.
page 346. So again, let's pick it up from the top. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe nega echad avi al paro, top of the page. I'm going to bring one more plague. V'al Mitzrayim. Acharei chen yishalach eschem mizeh kishalcho kola gorish eschem mizeh. And he's going to send you out totally. And I heard, last night I was in a cab, and I heard the cab driver had a shiur on from Rabbi Ben Sion Mustafi, who's one of the big rabbanim of the in the Sephardim, and he gives a talk, I think once a week. He gives a very well attended and very viewed all over the world by the Sephardim, like Rabbi Ovadia Yosef Zatzal used to give that shiur, the famous shiur. He said something very interesting. I was very intrigued by what he said. All through history, and it really resonated after I heard him. All through history, whenever there have been plagues, bubonic plague, and corona, and even other natural disasters, somehow the Jews get blamed. The Jews always got blamed. In the bubonic plague, they blamed the Jews. The Jews were contaminating the water, which was ridiculous. One of the reasons they blamed the Jews is because the Jews weren't getting sick, or they were getting sick less than the Goyim. And one of the reasons is because Jews are always washing their hands. So this is one of the times you see a classic example where mitzvahs bring benefits. We're always washing, come out of the bathroom, wash before you eat bread, wash before you daven, wash, go to the mikveh, wash. And sometimes we think it in spiritual terms as far as, well, you got to wash before you eat bread, you got all the requirements, but at the end of the day, there are always benefits. Mitzvahs have benefits. And one of the benefits was the Jews weren't getting the plague as much because their hands were clean. The other people were getting the plague there was excrement flowing through the streets of Europe. I don't know why it took them so. I don't know. Yeah, right. But I don't know. It took them so long to figure out where it's coming from. But at the end of the day, the Jews get blamed. Even in California, the fires. So one of the Muslims, they blamed the Jews. What's it got to do with the Jews? The Jew didn't set the forest fire. What's it got to do with the Jews? And it's always the Jews. So, Rabbi Mustafi explained it's not an accident. Because the way the world runs, and we know the world is created for the Jews, and the Gemara says that if there are disasters anywhere in the world, everything is because of the Jews. At a minimum, if there's an earthquake in Indonesia, we're supposed to at least wake up and take notice. We're not just like, oh well, good. I'm glad I don't live in Indonesia. I'm glad I don't live in Pakistan. No, it doesn't work that way. We're supposed to look at it and say, wow, that's a warning shot across the bow. The Gemara says, why was thunder created? Says the Gemara, thunder was created. Can we close that window over there? Thanks. Notice I said we. I had no intent of getting up. No, that comes from being married. I told you, it's like when your wife says, we need to call the washing machine guy. Oh, we. Oh, me or you. Yeah, you. We need to. Well, I know what we means. So when the Gemara says, why thunder was created? To straighten out the crookedness in man's heart. That's why thunder was created. When you hear a good clap a gesunte clap of thunder. So sometimes it's like, whoa. You're like, whoa. Because no matter what we feel we could control, and no matter how much we feel we're in control and we're smart and we're capable and we're running the show, all of a sudden you hear a clap of thunder. And even the biggest atheist or so-called atheist says, boy, I think I'm going to say something to Hillel. Because all of a sudden you start getting, it straightens you out. So that's what we're supposed to do with natural phenomena, with disasters, calamities, natural phenomena that happens. That's what we're supposed to do. At a deeper level, what Rabbi Mustafi explained was, when we're doing Torah and mitzvahs, let's say for, just to say, it's an oversimplification, but let's just say there's a quota of mitzvahs that we need to be doing in order to maintain the world at a steady level. If something happens where the steady level now is downgraded, and there's a calamity or a disease or something, chas v'sholom, that happens in the world, it's our fault because we didn't maintain that quota. We're not doing what we have to do. When the goyim turn on us and say it's because of the Jews, that means at some level, now that's not why they're doing it. They're doing it purely because of anti-Semitism. But at some level, it's been implanted in them to point the finger at the Jews so that we take the message, because to a certain extent it is because of the Jews. You understand? That's not why they're saying it. When she, what's her name, Tlaib or Talib, whatever her name's from the squad, when she says, well, it's because, or one of them said the fires in Los Angeles is because of the Jews in Gaza, it's because what they're doing in Gaza, somehow they triggered off a fire in Los Angeles. I don't know, that's some Hamas missile that made it all the way to Los Angeles. I'm not sure exactly. But in other words, at some subconscious level, and not even subconscious, it's implanted in them to point the finger at us because we're supposed to take the lesson. So all these plagues in Egypt, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is bringing them on the Egyptians. But we should know that throughout history, when there's trouble in the world, we're supposed to be looking at that and thinking, where do I need to improve? The Gemara says a man should always look at himself as he's half zakai, half righteous, and half not righteous. And that the entire world is in the balance, half righteous and half not righteous. And one mitzvah that I do could change the balance of the world. That's how the Gemara says we're supposed to look at ourselves. That I carry a tremendous responsibility, not only for myself and not only for the entire world. And it's just, I'm very interested because you see, we know that the goyim, there's a lot, blood libels. Remember we spoke about blood libels? The idea that they accuse the Jews of blood libels. Now, blood libels, I told you, are the most ridiculous lie that you could come up with. And it's been perpetrated and it's been constantly continued through history. There have been blood libels. I think the most recent blood libel was in 1950 in Russia. What's in the blood libel? The Jews shecht a Christian child and they use his blood for the Pesach matzahs. Number one, Jews don't go killing people. Number two, Jews have a tremendous aversion to blood. And number three, Pesach matzahs are the thing that we guard most carefully to make sure nothing gets into the Pesach matzahs. It's water, it's flour, no salt, no pepper, no flavoring, no nothing. The last thing we're going to put in is blood. We don't even need blood in our eggs. An egg with one little red spot of blood, you throw out the egg. We have such an aversion to blood. And we spoke a couple of days ago about liver that you can't even salt liver. Like you salt chicken or you salt meat to draw out the blood. You can't even salt liver. Liver is called completely blood. You have to roast out the liver, right? Which is, by the way, why chopped liver, when you eat chopped liver, has almost zero nutrients in it because you've roasted out all the nutrients. Yeah, it may taste good for those of you who like liver, but there's zero nutrients in liver. The nutrients are when it hasn't been roasted out.
So it's better to eat it raw.
Well, other than the fact that it's not kosher and it probably tastes horrific, some people notwithstanding, but it tastes horrific. But the nutrients are out. So why are they accusing us of blood libels? It's a ridiculous thing. I told you, if they would say Jews put blood in the cholent. Okay, a lot of stuff goes into cholent. Goodness knows what it is. I told you, if you're ever missing your wallet at home, check the cholent. You never know what's in there. You got to put anything. Some people put potatoes in the cholent. I think Sephardim put eggs in the cholent. Have you had that?
It's good.
Yeah, well, it turns brown. Yeah. Yeah, so does meat. Yeah. I'd rather have the meat, frankly. So I'm not an egg guy on a good day. I'm certainly not going to not going to ruin my Shabbos by eating eggs. But there, people enjoy the eggs. Some people put chickpeas in the cholent. People put ketchup in the cholent. People, okay, so tell me they put a little blood in the cholent and gave it that brownish flavor. Okay, I get it. In the matzah, where'd such a ridiculous thing come from? The answer is, Rabbi Chana Wasserman says that energy, that spiritual accusation energy, was activated by Yosef's brothers when they deceived Yaakov with blood. That put an energy into... Now, the goyim who are accusing us of blood libels, it's not like the goy was learning Vayishlach, oh, Yaakov's brothers, Yosef's brothers, you guys are killing Christian children. It's not like the goy learned Parshas Vayishlach. That means there's something in energy where they're not even aware of it themselves. That's the same thing over here. It's the Jews. It's the Jews. I heard once this guy during World War II. So these Nazi soldiers, they surrounded a Jew. They say, okay, Jew, who's responsible for the war? He's no fool. So he looks at them and goes, the Jews and the bicycle riders. So he looks at them, why the bicycle riders? He says, why the Jews? But it's always the Jews. It's the Jews' fault. The Jews manipulate the money in the world. The Jews there's a world conspiracy of the Jews there, which by the way is not 100% far off of the truth. But at the end of the day, there's something that they don't even know where it's coming from. That's the idea. Okay. So we left the question yesterday on Pasuk Beis. Daber na be'ozeim, third line from the top. Speak to the people. They should ask for silver and gold. Why does Moshe have to urge? It sounds like there's a reluctance on the part of the Jews to go and ask for these things. Why would there be a reluctance? Why would the Jews be hesitant to go and ask for free money, free gold, free silver? I wouldn't hesitate. Why would the Jews, why would there be a, what do you say, Binyamin?
Because the Egyptians just went through 9 plagues because of the Jews. Why on earth would they give them their possessions?
Well, Hashem says, Moshe says ask, meaning that they're going to give it to you. Just ask and they're going to give it to you.
Sure is that they will,
Yeah, we're sure they're going to give it to you. If all you got to do is ask and they're going to give it to you. Remember, the Egyptians are at a point where get out, anything, just take what you want, just get out. Just go. It's like my kids on vacation. Sometimes as the kids get older, the kids are, Daddy, what are we going to do today? So as the kids get a little older, when they're young, you got to entertain them, figure out an amusement park, the zoo, do something. And they get to be teenagers. It's just like, here, kid, just take $20. Just go. Just go. Just go. Then I can lock the door on the inside, take a book and a Pepsi, and we're all on vacation. Just go. Just go. So the Egyptians just get out. We're going to see there's an urgency to get them out. Why would the Jews be hesitant to ask for it? So 2 reasons they're given. Reason number 1 is that if we take their stuff and we go, that'll just give them even, what if they change their minds? They're freeing a bunch of slaves, cheap labor. That was, by the way, that was one of the reasons there was a civil war in America. People think very oversimplified that the Civil War was an ideological battle over whether or not slavery is a good thing or bad thing. Nobody's going to go die. Nobody's going to put their life on the line just for an ideology. No politicians do that. What was the fight really about? The fight was about cheap labor. The South had the plantations, and they needed cheap labor, and the North had industry. And they wanted the labor up north, even if it meant paying for it. So the battle was, it was because it's wrong and it's morally wrong. That's when do they have morals? The battle was over money. The battle was over money. Now, you're letting all these slaves go. They're doing a lot of stuff in Egypt. The Medrash says that it was not worthwhile, but it was. They were plowing fields and and it's cheap labor. You're going to let all these guys go just like that. 600,000 people are just going to leave. There goes your economy. So as it is, there's a concern that the Egyptians, after they let them go, they're going to say, hey, what did we just do? And they're going to go chase them, which indeed they did. Now you're going to give them even more reason to chase you. Hey, there goes our cheap labor and my wife's necklace. And my what do you call it? My bling. And my, what do you guys call it? My ice. There's my, and they're walking off with my, hey, what's going on over here? So the Jews, number 1, there may be a reluctance that we don't want to give them a further excuse to change their mind. Practically. There's a different reason, a deeper reason. Imagine the following. Imagine you get on the bus and you give your seat to a little old lady on the bus. Who wouldn't? A little old lady gets on, you get up and you give her your seat. Okay. Then you come back to the yeshiva and you bring a meal to your roommate because he's sick. And then there's a guy in Shiur doesn't understand the Gemara. and you take time and you help and say, wow, you are such a selfless guy. You are a really selfless person. I'm really impressed with you. Then as you walk out of the room, there's another little old lady, and she's carrying her bags to the bus. So you help her because she's heavy bags. And after you help her, she says, here, I want to give you $10 for helping me. Thank you very much. Would you take the money? Why not? Why not? What?
Wasn't the purpose. I wasn't doing it for the money.
Yeah, but now the money's being offered. Would you take the money?
I'll take the money.
You would take the money. Yeah, that's why I looked over there when I asked the question. Yeah, I purposely didn't look in this direction. And that's why I didn't look in the mirror either. Yeah, yeah. Would you take the money?
It retroactively taints the action.
It takes the action. It's retroactive, and therefore what?
Your reward is not up to the reward.
That's why you would do it, because you're worried about the reward in the world to come? It could be. I don't want to, I don't take money from a mitzvahs. That's true. But at a certain point, when you have a reputation, if you take money, I want to live. The only thing worth more to me than money is my pride, my reputation. I'm getting honor. People look at me as a tzaddik. I'm the selfless guy who helps people. And if I go and I take money, you kind of like people, oh sure, help. It kind of downgrades your reputation. What did the Jewish people just do? They had an opportunity. It was dark. They could have stolen, they could have looted, they could have beaten up the helpless Egyptians, and they didn't. How are the Egyptians looking at the Jewish people right now? Wow, these are really special people. Wow, these are really people on a high level. And now it's like if you find money, you find $1,000 and you return it to the guy who lost it. He says, here, Andrew, let me give you $20 for your trouble. Would you take the money? I wouldn't take it. Not 20. If you offered me $100, they'd talk. But for $20, I wouldn't do it because I'd rather live with at least the imagination that he thinks I'm a tzaddik. That way I could walk around all day thinking, wow, I am a tzaddik. At least I could pat myself on the back. Once I take $20, then he's not going to think I'm such a tzaddik anymore. And then I know that he's not thinking I'm a tzaddik, and I like when people think I'm a tzaddik on those very, very, very rare occasions. So I would rather live with. So the Jewish people, what did they just do? They just showed that we are such a high-level people. We didn't take advantage of. Now you're going to come back and say, oh, by the way, I'll take that earring set. My sister-in-law could use that earring set. And by the way, those necklaces that you have, the rubies, yeah, those are also pretty nice also. And those gold candlestick holders, that'll be great for Shabbos. And what do you do to yourself? So there's going to be a resistance on the part of the Jewish people. I don't want to ruin my reputation. I had a guy once approach me years ago. Now we're going back about maybe 35 years. 35, even more, I think it was 38 years. My first year in Ohr Somayach. So a guy walks up to me. He was collecting for some cause, collecting tzedakah for some cause. So he walks up to me and goes, oh, Kaplan, you're a generous guy. I'm collecting money for this and that. Can you maybe give us 20 shekel, whatever the money was? He didn't know me from Adam. I'm not a generous guy, but he said it. And as soon as he said it, he had me. Because I don't want to ruin it. If he thinks I'm a generous guy, I don't know why he thinks so, and I don't even know why he said so, but I'd certainly like to maintain that. Here you go. For tzedakah, here you go. Because you want that reputation. Yeah.
I just, a quick devil's advocate on your taking money.
Ask a question.
Can you explain that in the case of like a doctor? If you met somebody who was like, oh, I'm a pediatric surgeon, I make $1 million a year, you wouldn't be like, look at this schmuck, like he's getting rich off of saving children. So
first of all, maybe we would. Second of all, maybe we would. Second of all, we expect a person who's gone to medical school and he's invested in himself and probably may have debts. We know that doctors are allowed to charge like any other professional. Nobody would expect a bus driver to give you a ride for free. A guy who picks you up in his car to give you a ride to shul, and then he says to you, by the way, you don't mind chipping in for the gasoline, do you? For the 4 blocks that I drove you, or pay me for my trouble. You're like, yeah, sure, I'll pay you for your trouble because you are trouble. You're certainly troubled. A doctor has a right to charge. There's nothing wrong with a doctor charging. And not only that, the Gemara says what's the exact expression? A doctor who charges for nothing is worth nothing. A doctor who cures for nothing is worth nothing. Doctors, we don't want doctors treating us for free. We want doctors charging. And the more they charge, the better the doctor, in most cases. That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says a doctor who does it for nothing is worth nothing. That's what the Gemara says. So a doctor is a professional is a different situation. But somebody who does you a favor and charges for the favor afterwards, what do you think of such a person? That's what the Jewish people are concerned about here. It's going to ruin their reputation. It's going to ruin their reputation. A guy comes over to you and says, wow, you're a really sweet guy. Do you mind helping me move my furniture? I would do it. He thinks I'm a sweet guy. He said, yeah, you're a sweet guy. He doesn't know me from Adam, but let him at least think so. That's why, by the way, that's why we're a lot better outside. Our behavior outside the home with strangers is often much better than it is inside the home. Because with strangers, we could put on a show. Our family, they know us better already. And outside the home, everybody's polite, everybody speaks nicely to people, right? Isn't that true? And in the house, we're a little more disrespectful, a little rude, that's all because of that reputation. That's the idea. Okay, now, take a look at the next pasuk, because this is such an important idea that has to be internalized, and there's a lot of confusion here, and I want this to be very, very clear. Vayiten Hashem eschein ha'am b'nei Mitzrayim, fifth line from the top. Hashem put the charm of the people in the eyes. The Jewish people where the Egyptians saw them as very charming. How does article translate chen? Grant favor in the eyes of Egypt. It's more than favor. There's a certain charm that they have. Gam ha'ish Moshe gadol me'od be'eretz Mitzrayim. The man Moshe was very great in the land of Egypt. Be'enei avdei Paro, in the eyes of the servants of Paro. Uve'enei ha'am, in the eyes of the nation. Now, I mentioned a couple of times that the servants of Paro, you notice it uses two expressions here. It says avdei Paro, which is the servants of Paro, uve'enei ha'am, and the nation, page 346. In the eyes of Paro and in the eyes of the nation. Now, I mentioned a couple of times, avdei Paro refers to his inner circle. That refers to those who are closest, the high officials who are closest to him. And the Am refers to the rest of the Egyptian nation. I mean, they were all servants of Paro. The nation was also servants of Paro. Yet, when it says avdei Paro, the commentaries say that that's referring to those who were the high officials, the inner cabinet, the government ministers. Those are the avdei ha'am. Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. I'm going to use professional football as an example. Those of you who are not Americans, you should be. We're going to use professional. Where are you, Shia? Yeah, you should be. And maybe you are. We'll make him an honorary American. What do you say, guys? We have to vote on it. Who says yes? Okay, we'll make our Shai an honorary American. Now, Cab, you don't get a vote because you're South African. You don't get the vote. So, and I didn't. Okay, now you watch. If you ever watch professional football, you're watching. It's 4th and 1, and when you're the fans in the stands, what are you thinking? Go for it. Yeah, let's go. Go for it. Go for it. What you don't know, because football is so sophisticated, is if they would go for it, so the quarterback would not only get tackled, get sacked, he would die. Right? The coach knows what's going on the field. You see a play. Quarterback throws the ball, guy makes a catch, they score a touchdown. You're thinking, wow, the quarterback's great, the wide receiver's great. And what you don't know is that the key to the entire play was one block from an interior lineman on a linebacker that made the whole play. And if you know anything about football, you know enough to know, if you know anything about football, you know enough to know that you know nothing about football. That's what you know. The person who knows nothing about football thinks he understands it. When you know a little bit more about football, you realize you don't understand anything. I had a guy here once was I think a high school linebacker, and he said that and they were at a practice, and one of the coaches started yelling at one of the other linebackers. He started bawling him out because on the snap, he stepped back with the wrong foot. You're supposed to move one foot, not the other foot. They talk about the quarterbacks doing footwork. Who knows what they're talking about? I haven't the faintest idea. At least I know. To me, He looks like the player. He looks like a great player because I see the guys who are doing the things that catch attention. The players themselves, they know who's really quality because they're out on the field. They understand what the quality really is. The coaches know the quality. They recognize the quality. This is in many fields. In medicine, if you needed to find a medical specialist, who would you ask? Would you ask your neighbor? Oh, yeah, we went to that guy. He was really good. See, I'm still vertical, so he must be a good doctor. A person who needs a medical specialist, where do you start with? You start with your family doctor. And you ask your family doctor for a recommendation because he understands this. He says, well, it's one of those three guys. Then you go to the people in that specialty field, people who are heart surgeons, and they can tell you, none of us could do that surgery. There's only one surgeon, and he's somewhere in Massachusetts who's a specialist on that particular surgery. How did you get there? By asking the other experts who recognize expertise. You can't ask the people, who the amateurs. They don't understand the field, and it's like that in many fields in life. How do we recognize, people have asked me, how did they choose the Gedolim? How did they recognize Torah leadership, the Gedolim, the Torah leaders? Well, the answer is, you had a Chazon Ish. The Chazon Ish recognized the Brisker Rav, and the Brisker Rav recognized the Chazon Ish as being Torah leadership. The two of them recognized the Stipler and Rav Shach. They both knew them. And Rav Shach and the Stipler together recognized Rav Moshe Feinstein and Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, all of whom recognized Rav Steinman, and they recognized Rav Gershon Edelstein. And you understand, it's the people at the top. Quality recognizes quality. If you're not there, you don't even know what it is you're looking for. That's how it's determined. When it comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, what do you think the average Egyptian saw about Moshe Rabbeinu? What was it that the average Egyptian was impressed with Moshe Rabbeinu? What do you think?
Certainly not his speeches.
Certainly not his speaking, right? Correct.
He pushed back against Pharaoh, who they thought was a god.
Okay. What was how did he push back? What do you think the average Egyptian saw in Moshe Rabbeinu? I don't think so. The miracle man. Wow, look at that. Frogs. Wow, look at that. Thunder, lightning. Yeah, wow, the miracle man. What did the more sophisticated people see? They saw the humility, and they saw the self-control, and they saw the pushback. Why? Because they're on a higher sophisticated level, so they can see the essence of the man. Your average person doesn't see that. He sees sensationalism. Wow, miracles, cool. That's why the Torah says, Gam ha'ish Moshe, the man Moshe, not his miracles, ha'ish Moshe. Gadol me'od be'eretz Mitzrayim be'enei avdei paro. The servants, the inner circle, the sophisticated ones, they're the first ones to see Moshe the man. Uveinam, and then the rest of the people will start recognizing it. But what did the other people recognize first? The first thing I see is sensational. Whoa, miracle. Wow, that's how they judge him. So the first heart transplant, the first successful heart transplant took place where, Cab? First heart in South Africa. Do you remember the name of the doctor?
Related to him.
Really?
I don't even know.
What was it? I used to know his name. What was his name? I'm going to get emails on this. They send me the emails whenever I ask a question. I forgot the guy's name. I'll remember. It'll come to me. If you would ask me who's a great heart surgeon, I would say him. Why? Because I'm an amateur and I saw something sensational took place. If you ask the heart surgeon, say, yeah, he happened to be good at that particular surgery, but they're much better heart surgeons. When Rav Elyashiv Zatzal had to have a very, very sophisticated heart surgery he was, I think, 98 years old. And it was very, very delicate type of heart surgery that he had to have something with one of the things in there. Forgot what that's called. No, not one of the. What was it called?
Like the capillary.
We'll call it capillaries. Yeah, capillaries. So they brought in a Dr. Claire from Cleveland Clinic, who was known to do, this was his specialty, this was his surgery. How did they know to get to him? Because the medical experts, their POs, medical advisors, medical experts, they all pointed to this one man. The average guy doesn't know the first thing. What was the name of that doctor? You don't remember? The South African doctor. It was done, that was the first heart transplant in history. Please. Well, nobody will know then. Christian Barnard, that's right. Thank you very much. How did you remember it? How did you know that?
I searched him.
Oh, okay. See, we got it without you. Christian Barnard, right. So if somebody would ask me, I'd say him. But the people in the know would tell you, no, that's how we select. People, how do you select the Torah leadership? Torah leadership is not a vote. It's not a popular vote. It's the Torah leaders recognize the other Torah leaders. The Gedolim recognize the other Gedolim. That's how it is. Quality recognizes quality. That's how it works. Okay. One more point. We're going to stop early today because I'm not feeling well. In Pasuk Dalid, Vayomer Moshe. So Paro has chased Moshe out. He says, get out. I don't ever want to see you again. So Moshe, before he leaves, he says, okay, you won't, but just one last word over here. Vayomer Moshe, Ko Amar Hashem, Kachatzos halayla ani yotzei besoch Mitzrayim. At the halfway point of the night, I'm going to be going out in Egypt. Umeis kol bechor be'eretz Mitzrayim. Every firstborn is going to die. Mi bechor Paro hayoshev al kiso, ad bechor hashivcha asher achar chaim. Paro's firstborn, the firstborn of the maidservants, the commentaries say that even the servants in Egypt were happy that the Jews were suffering. They were laughing at the Jews. V'chol bechor behema, even the animals, their firstborns are going to die. So nobody should say that the animals are gods and they can protect the Egyptians either. They're all going to die. And there's going to be a tremendous yell. There's going to be a tremendous yell. Asher kamolo niyosef v'chamolo sosif. There never was such a yell. There never be. Every house, there's not going to be a house where somebody doesn't die. Punishment. Now you're going to see what it's like that the Jewish people went through with all of their suffering. Now you're going to get a good taste of what that suffering really was. Yet the Jewish people, no dog will wag his tongue at the Jewish people. According to some of the commentaries, it means he won't wag his tongue. Other commentaries here. This is where the commentaries, they were all read the same pasuk. Right? Where you're asking, what does it mean, lo yecheratz kel v'shono? Some say he won't wag his tongue. Some say he won't bark at the Jewish people. Some say he won't make growling sounds. Whatever it is, the dogs will not intimidate the Jewish people in any way. Lo yecheratz kel v'shono lemeish v'ad behema. Leman teidun asher yafla Hashem b'mitzrayim v'eni. So that you should know that Hashem has distinguished between Egypt, the Egyptians, and the Jews. So later on, we're going to see that the Torah later on in Vayikra says that when you have animal, you slaughter an animal and it turns out to be treif. So the Torah says, what do you do with that treif meat? So the pasuk in the Torah later on in the Torah says, La kelev tashlichun also, throw it to the dogs. And the Gemara says, it's a reward for the dogs. Why? Because they didn't wag their tongues at the Jewish people. They didn't bark at the Jewish people. What's the obvious question?
Don't we sell it to non-Jews?
What?
Don't we sell it to
You could, but the Torah says throw it to the dog. You could sell theoretically. What's that? Dogs don't have free choice. Why should they be rewarded? The dogs didn't bark. It wasn't like, hey, there's a Jew. Hey, Rover, don't bark, bro. He's a Jew, right? Well, the dogs don't have free choice. So why is the Torah telling them? Why do they deserve to be rewarded? Dogs don't have free choice. Remember I told you about the dolphins? There was a guy fell into shark-infested water in the Gulf of America. Into the Gulf. He's renamed it the Gulf of America. He fell into what was once the Gulf of Mexico. So a guy fell into shark-infested water in the Gulf of America, and which is bad. He said he was surrounded by sharks. And then a bunch of dolphins surrounded him. They beat up the sharks and they escorted him to dry land, the Dolphin Hatzalah Committee. So a guy in Shiur once asked me, do those dolphins get rewarded? The answer is that dolphins don't have free choice. dolphins are programmed to fight sharks, and they do fight sharks. I told you, the way they fight sharks, they torpedo themselves at the shark's gills. And they smash the gills, the shark can't breathe. You can't take in any water, sharks die. And they see the dolphins are always fighting sharks. So a guy asked me, do the dolphins, do they get rewarded? I thought, no, they don't get rewarded because that's free choice. The dolphins are programmed to fight sharks. Did they surround the guy? And if they did surround him and escort him, it's a program for that also. It's not free choice. So why do the dogs get rewarded? Why should the dogs be rewarded? This wasn't free choice. The answer is they're rewarded to teach us what happens when you fulfill God's will. They're being used as an example. That you didn't bark, you get the meat. And that's an example to us who do have free choice, that when we activate our free choice, we do the right thing, and we're going to be rewarded. Okay, we have to stop for a minute.